hopefully all of you had a chance to go refill coffee and get back in that little break. So I am Alan Whitehouse. I am with TrueSky. Some of you may have seen my earlier presentation. If so, some of the slides I'm going to go through will be a little bit redundant for you, so I do apologize for that. But when we get to the presentation, you will see something completely new. I'm going to talk about doing compensation planning with TrueSky. Now, TrueSky is a budgeting, forecasting, planning tool that can do a lot of different things. One of those things that we have quite a few clients do is compensation planning, which can get quite complex. Now, again, for many of you, especially those who were not on the earlier session, you're probably using Excel to manage all forms of your budgeting and planning, including compensation planning. And the problem with that, if my mouse will actually move me forward, is even though Excel is a very powerful tool, it's incredibly flexible. You can model any kind of process with it. You can do tons of powerful calculations, which is really important if you're doing detailed compensation planning stuff. And it's got rich presentation and high user adoption. The problem is it's not perfect, right? It's not a database. It's got a lot of manual steps. It's got no workflow, no audit trail, no version control, and it's error prone. And actually, if you're doing something like compensation planning, and if you're getting down to detailed calculations, such as, what is unemployment, what is health benefits, when you're dealing with caps and limits and stuff like that, it's very easy to have errors appear. Now, we do know that over 90% of all spreadsheets contain some form of error. In most of your organizations, these are small. Hopefully you never experience something like you're seeing on screen here today, where somebody might have lost $6 billion because of copy paste, or $2.5 billion because of a minus sign that should have been a plus sign, right? But think back to your situation. You have spreadsheets, you're using a lot of them. You're doing things in a compensation worksheet that somehow feeds your main P&L type budget. Odds are there are errors, right? And that can cost you, a lot of money because you make decisions based on those budgets and forecasts, but you've got errors in it. So why would you look at using an application like TrueSky? Well, we're going to allow you to focus on the high value stuff. So focusing on the information that comes back out of having a budget and forecast, rather than going through all of that drudgery of budget preparation. And when you're doing something like compensation, drudgery is a key word because there's a lot of it. Now, when it comes to that, we're going to help 3 different groups in your organization. The first of those is going to be contributors. So we're going to help reduce the time and the effort. And a contributor is the frontline person that's going to do input. So in the case of compensation, this is probably somebody like a department manager who has all of their list of employees that work on their team, and then deciding, okay, who's going to get a raise? Is somebody leaving? Are we going to hire for a new position, and so forth? That can be pretty tedious. And we're going to help make that more streamlined. Then when it comes to the finance group, we're going to minimize your administration and increase the quality of the data that you get. So think of it when you're doing detailed compensation calculations, where let's say you've got your retirement plan benefit, right? Where there are minimums or maximums that how much people can contribute, where there are maximums for what you're going to match, or think about unemployment. No matter what country you are, there's unemployment rules when you're paying in, right? And there's caps and limits, right? It's very easy for those calculations to get off, and those can have a material effect on your bottom line budget. So we're going to actually help increase the quality of those. And at the end of the day, we're going to give to your decision makers not just these numbers, but actually meaningful information that's going to help reduce risk and avoid surprises. So again, how many employees, headcount versus FTE, how many are leaving at a certain point, what kind of raises are we going to do, the ability to actually do what ifs around your wages and where that's all going to come from. So when we developed TrueSky, we had a few pillars that we went into our design methodology. First of those, that we wanted you to continue to leverage Excel. Part of that is because it's got rapid user adoption, requires minimal training, and it's got a huge depth and breadth of functionality, right? This is going to allow you to maintain your solution over the course of time. So when the rules change about how you have to calculate unemployment or social insurance or your health benefits, you're going to be able to maintain that. You're not going to have to rely on somebody else to do that for you because you're going to be able to do it within our interface. You're going to have a ease of use that you can pick up. You're gonna have a lot of flexibility, and there's gonna be enhancements around what we do that are gonna help get you through that process quicker. We also want to be able to empower you as the finance group. We're going to give you that centralized data. So again, all of your data is in one place. The compensation is linked to your financial P&L type budget. You're going to get audit trails. You're going to get application and data security. This is critical when you're talking compensation. Security is key, right? You want to get more people involved in the budgeting and forecasting process, right? You want to offload a lot of that work onto, more people at each, it's less onerous on each person. But guess what? Compensation, you got to make sure your security is tight. You don't want all of your compensation numbers getting out into the wild domain. So again, we give you both that application and data security. When you're going to roll up all of your budget numbers, we're going to do that in real time for you. We're going to give you direct integration to different data sources, including your HR and payroll package, if it allows it. If not, we can always deal with things like payroll providers through flat file type transfers. Also, at the end of the day, we're going to facilitate knowledge. We're going to let you get more people involved in the budget, right? So let those department managers budget for their employees. We're going to let you add notes and things and that explaining why you need more hires, why you need to let people go, why you need to switch positions, whatever the case may be. We'll give you some deep dive analytics. I showed a lot of this in our earlier session. We're going to ultimately give you increased accuracy and decision level information. Now, before I talk specifically about compensation, I just want to make sure everyone knows that compensation is just one of the things that we do with TrueSky as far as planning, budgeting, and forecasting goes. We really let you do any kind of budgeting and planning and reporting that you can think of, whether it be financial and operational, compensation, sales, revenue, expenses, CapEx, project costing, project revenue, production planning or inventory, or even structured data capture. And these can all feed each other. So as an example, you might be doing sales and revenue forecasting by customer, by product as an example. Those numbers that come out of that might also feed the compensation model based on commissioned for sale, commission sales reps as an example, right? So these different areas can affect other areas as well. So you've got one comprehensive solution. Now, when it comes to compensation planning, these are some of the things we do. Again, not everything we do. You have the ability to budget by individual or by position or a combination thereof. So I have certain clients that will budget down to the individual level for part of their business, yet for other parts of their business, they got a huge turnover, a lot of part-time employees, they just do it by position instead, right? We give you the ability to deal with calculating salary wages, hourly wages, bonuses, commissions, all of that. Calculating of taxes and benefits in detail or summary. So you can get all the way down to by individual, by tax or benefit with all the caps and limit calculation, or you can do it at a higher level. We're just going to budget by position and we're going to multiply that salary by 22% to get our overhead for taxes and benefits. Or it can be somewhere in between. There's a lot of flexibility to the configuration. We have the ability to, updating existing people or hire new people. So again, putting in new budgetary people. Being able to automatically adjust for things like start and end dates. People are going to leave the organization, they're going to come back, maternity leave, what have you. As well as if you're going to tie this back for things like cash flow planning, taking into account the number of pay periods per month. Because again, if certain months you're doing biweekly, you're going to have a bigger payroll in a couple months out of the year, and that can affect your cash flow, right? We can give you direct integration to your HR and payroll system if it is allowed. And if not, we can do flat file integration. Again, a lot of those payroll providers like ADP and Ceridian won't allow you to do direct integration, but we have a way to get around that. And again, all of these different products will integrate. So as I said, sales revenue might feed compensation, compensation might feed your P&L type budget. So everything is tied in to one another. So with that, I'm going to get out of slides and I'm going to show you just a flavor of one way to do compensation. This is not the only way to do it within TrueSky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on this first worksheet. Now again, I've already been in TrueSky as a user. I've pulled back my assignment as an HR payroll professional or department manager. And this would be the starting place for your budget most times. And this is getting in your rates for your different benefits and taxes. Now, the list I have up on screen here is a fairly generic type list. Your list would be very specific to you. So as an example, I have federal unemployment, and its basis for calculation is a percent of wages, and that is 4% per paycheck, per pay period, to a yearly maximum of $4,000. Same kind of thing for state or provincial unemployment. Social Security is a percent of wages. But then we come down to here to some different ones that might be unique to you, right? First thing, workers' comp. I'm showing one example for workers' comp at one rate and one yearly max. However, in your organization, you may have different lines of business with different workers' comp rates. As an example, I have a client that is in that has two very distinct lines of business under their umbrella. And depending on which line of business an employee works in, it's a different workers' comp because one is a riskier environment to work within. Then you would have all these different taxes that may be unique to you or the jurisdiction, such as a transit tax, that is only charged to employees that are in certain jurisdictions, or things like health insurance or dental or retirement plan contributions. Again, all of these lists would be unique to you and your example. Now you're going to put these into the system, and again, we're going to use these throughout the whole rest of the process. So you only have to enter it once, and it will automatically take into account throughout the rest of the process. You can also do what ifs in this, although I'm not showing it here. You might have a couple different scenarios where, okay, what happens if retirement plan rate goes to 3%, or the transit tax goes to $10 per pay period, whatever the case may be. So these are the different setups that you would have. Again, usually you do this at the start of the process. Somebody that is in control of HR and payroll would probably update these, and these would be used throughout the rest of the process, okay? Now, the next step I'm going to talk about is applicable to some of you and not others. And that might be setting up what your different employee allocations are. Now, some of you may be in a situation where if you're budgeting down to the individual employee level, there is no allocation. Everyone's tied to one cost center or one location, one department, one company, whatever the case may be. But it's not, and they're not split. They don't spend their time with different departments. However, for a lot of other views, you may have allocations. What I'm showing you up here is the ability to put in allocations by employee. In my example here, and yours could be very different, each of these employees is split just amongst departments. Now you can see here as the color shading changes, Emmett is split between corporate and service and installation on a 60-40 basis. We go down here to Martha. She is split to these 4 departments on this different basis. Now, one of the things that we make sure always gets enforced is that if an employee is over or under allocated, we give you immediate feedback so you know it. So you make sure that everyone is fully allocated, okay? Now, I'm putting in percentages. You could be, instead of using percentage splits, these could be hours split. This could be based on some other factors as well. So again, you get control over here, but now we know once we calculate employees for Emmett or Albert or Martha or whoever, it's going to ultimately be split out on these kind of ratios here. So you have that ability to get very granular with how you're doing your compensation. So this is the kind of thing, these first 2 screens are the kind of things that maybe somebody at a global level are going to control, right? And then we get into the point where maybe it's going to be somebody in HR and payroll, or maybe it's going to be department heads. And this would be how you put in salary calculations. Now you can see here, I have only brought back employees that are related to the corporate department as opposed to sales and marketing or operations or what have you. You can see here, these are the employees. Now, throughout TrueSky, we have security. So I would only ever be able to see the employees or the departments that I have access to. So you don't have to worry about people being able to see other people's compensation. But let me show you a little bit about what goes on this screen. Now, a lot of this is going to be configured and tailored to you as an organization. But you can see here, I'm doing things like tracking start and end periods for these employees. So Emmett is going to work January through December, but we know Albert, for whatever reason, is leaving in June. Okay, and we come down here to Martha, and I'll zoom in a little bit here for you guys. Let's say we know Martha is going to be here through the end of the year, but maybe Martha right now is on maternity leave and not coming back until August, okay? So we're able to put in things like start and end dates. Now, pulling back from HR and payroll or your payroll provider, we know what their current years for hours are, and then you can actually put in what their budget yearly hours are going to be as well. And you can actually adjust this, and based on your rules, this will calculate an FTE as well. So you see as I'm putting in more hours for this person, I'm getting closer and closer. I think it's 2080 what I have set up here, yes, as an FTE. So at the end of the day, not only can we provide you reporting on your dollars, but we can say, okay, how many headcount do we have? How many FTEs do we have here? And obviously we're pulling in current salaries, and I'm showing salaries. I'll go over to hourly in just a little bit here to show you a little bit more. And then you can deal with raises. Now, you can actually handle this globally. Everyone gets a 2% increase. We also have a lot of organizations that are union shops or have tiers where it's within the ranges, so we handle that as well. But here you can see on this point, I'm putting in a percentage, right? And it could be dollars, but I'm going to say just for fun, this person's doing a great job. They're getting a 100% raise. And their raise isn't going to go into effect until September, okay? So now you can see for these different individuals, we know what their start and end periods are going to be, hours, salary, raises, and so forth. And over here at the end of the day, it's going to calculate what their salaries are going to be, right? So you can see here, 8813, 8813. That's because we've got 2 pay periods, 2 pay periods, 3 pay periods. And then you can see over here, this is where their bump up goes into effect into their raise. This employee is leaving at the end of the June, so it automatically cuts things off, and this employee is coming back from maternity leave, and this is when it starts. Now, this data would then map back to your P&L type budget based on whatever rules you have, where salary goes to these GL accounts, these departments go here, whatever the case may be. There's a matrix that you can set up. I'm not going to go into that. That gives you this mapping. But then when it comes down here to federal unemployment, you can see here that because if you remember earlier on my first screen, we cap out at $4,000 a year for an individual. So it automatically knows the caps and when it's going to cap out. So again, these map to your P&L, but it gives you a really good idea if you're going to tie back to cash flow planning, better than a simple divide by 12. And it will do this for all of these benefits. Now, again, certain employees based on their classification may not get transit tax, may not get health insurance. And again, all of that can be deployed within TrueSky as well. We also have the capability of doing hourly employees, not just salary. We can do piecework, we can do commission as well. So this works in this example a little similarly, right? We know what periods they're going to work, how many hours, and how many hours they're going to work during the week. Now, we can also set this up that if you have highs and lows, we have a lot of clients that do compensation planning, people that are hourly, but maybe they've got seasonality in their business. So during part of the year, it's really low, but they ramp up the hours during the summer months, as an example. So we can handle that even though I'm not showing you it here. But again, this is giving us people like, what are the actual FTE calculations that come down, their hourly wage, what increase period they're getting. And just like the rest, it will calculate out their wages throughout the year. So again, showing you the ability to handle hourly and salary. We can also give you the ability to add on-the-fly budgetary employees. I'm not going to show that right now, but there's a little button that becomes active up here where they can say add new budgetary employee. It will then prompt them for some additional information, like when are they going to start, when are they going to end, what is their starting hourly salary, and so forth. And again, all of this can go through an approval process as well. So your different people can work on all of your different budgeting and forecasting models here. They can put their numbers in for compensation. They can actually go ahead and submit for approval. You can go through an approval process, yes and no. And then at the end of this, what will happen is all of those wages will be allocated out appropriately. So you can see right here, I'm going to open up my whole list and I'm showing you a report format here. These are all of my salaries by month for these employments. And these, actually, let me show you pre-allocated first, sorry. These are all my employees that I had budgeted for up to this point. And it shows you their salary by month as we've gone through with all of our additions and everything else. But then what this is also showing you is how do they get allocated across all the different departments. So you can see Emmett is here for the corporate department. And if we scroll down here again, you will see Emmett down in one of the other departments here as well. So we capture all of this, and this is how your numbers allocate out for both salary and all of your benefits and so forth. So very detailed compensation planning. Now, this is at the most detailed level. You can do it at a more roll-up summary level by putting in, okay, how many people do we have at this position? What is the average rate for this position? And then calculate at that point. So you don't have to take it to this extreme, but you have that capability with TrueSky. So that kind of gives you a flavor for the budgeting and forecasting components for compensation planning. Just to review again a little bit, budget by individual position, do salary, hourly, commissions, and more, calculate all of the taxes and benefits, what ifs, new and existing hires, dealing with all things like start and end dates and pay periods, and again, maps to your financial and data models. So again, just to reiterate, TrueSky can do quite a bit when it comes to budgeting, forecasting, and planning. So at the end of the day, you're going to get a solution that's going to give you all the strengths of Excel, the flexibility, you can model any process, all those calculations that you will ultimately be able to control yourself, and that rich presentation and a high user adoption. You're then going to get the control that you don't get today. You're going to get the fact that it's all controlled by a back-end database. You're going to have workflow, approvals, and security and audit trails, things that are very critical when you're doing compensation planning. And at the end of the day, you're going to get an enterprise solution. Everything's going to be integrated. You're going to get one version of that truth. You're going to get centralized control, actionable information, and you're going to reduce risk and you're going to avoid surprises. So at the end of the day, you're going to get the power of Excel and you're going to lose all that painful merge that you have to go through today. You're going to reduce your admin costs and you're going to get rid of having to juggle all those spreadsheets and bad links, which really gets out of control with compensation. You're going to get direct integration to your source data and you're going to lose all that manual manipulation data errors. At the end of the day, you're going to get meaningful information and you're going to get rid of unwanted surprises. So I will now open it up for questions. If you want to ask any questions, type them into the GoToWebinar question bar. Before you drop off, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to me. I know you had the option of other tracks as well, so I hope you found this a little bit informative and of interest. So with that, up on the screen here is if you want to get more information, you can also go out to our website. We've got some more demonstrations, videos, and stuff about TrueSky. But if this is of interest to you, let us know. We'd be more than happy to do a more personalized demo for you, talk a little bit more about your situation, do some reviews of scope, and then ultimately get you a proposal. But with that, I will shut up until you ask some questions. And if you are going to drop off, thanks for attending and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Alan. So we did have a few questions. One of the questions that has come in is, how do you access the data from payroll solutions like ADP?
Great question. So payroll providers, you know, the outsourced providers that do it online, like a ADP, a Ceridian, Paychex, Velocity, there's a whole bunch of them, right? They will not give you direct integration to their systems, and you kind of understand why, right? So what TrueSky also has is the capability to bring in flat file. So you're going to take a report out of those solutions. Just think of it as an Excel spreadsheet. You know, you got your employee ID, the employee name, their salary, and so forth. You know, what benefits they get. We have a function that is designed to bring in flat file data like that, which we use probably for about 80% of our clients that are doing compensation planning, because that's probably about what the breakdown is for doing outsourced payroll providers. And then what happens is you export that file out of ADP, Ceridian. We've got a little routine that you do to grab that file. It uploads it into TrueSky, and then you go from there. So we've taken that into account to try to keep you from having to do manual data entry, save you clicks and time and effort.
That's awesome. Another question I have here is, does TrueSky let you budget for potential new hires even if you haven't hired them yet?
Yeah, and that is something that we support. Absolutely. Different companies handle it differently. Some will let the end users, like department managers, put them in directly. It's a little button that pops up. People start typing in, you know, some information. It's going to be this hire date, this salary, and so forth, which is great. It saves entries. Sometimes department managers can go a little crazy. But that's why we have an approval process, so you can say yes or no on those. Other organizations will let HR handle that and put in dummy employees, not dummy employees, but like, you know, to be hired employees. So yes, we've taken that into account with TrueSky. We do have a feature to handle that. And there's a couple different ways you can approach it depending on what your organizational mandate is.
Awesome. So those are the two questions that we did have. I'd like to say thank you so much, Alan, for presenting today.
Thank you for having me, and I hope you all found it informative.
Now, if anybody has any additional questions or they're still thinking about it, there will be a chance to ask those and get those questions answered.